Some things are different than they used to be, and some things are the same. One of the things that would be the same is if you go to a grocery store, they have a whole aisle of cereal. Cereal's got to be big business because there's a whole aisle of it. I always loved going to the grocery store, even when I was a kid. I think it was just the lights and the color and, oh, that's interesting and that's interesting. And it didn't seem mundane to me as a kid. It seemed interesting. I even have this one crazy memory of a few times we went grocery shopping with my aunt in Augusta. And this is back when Augusta really had a French quarter of town. And we would go to this Pat Node's grocery store, and it was like going to another country because nobody there seemed to be speaking English. It seemed like everybody was speaking French. And I wondered what they were saying. They had a cereal aisle. Everybody had a cereal aisle. Now, nowadays, if we walk down the cereal aisle, one of the really interesting things is the way they market cereal. Colorful boxes, colorful packaging, lots of words all over it. And today the words are telling you this is healthy. No matter how much sugar is in it, they're going to let you know, oh, maybe there's some protein or some calcium or part of a healthy breakfast. All the marketing on cereal seems to be about the health of the product. It used to be different. When I was a kid, you'd walk down the cereal aisle and all the marketing was, this is the toy inside this box. Buy the Sugar Smacks and get this toy here. And I remember walking down the aisle trying to pick out the one with the coolest toy, and my mom would say, but you don't even like that kind of cereal. But look, it's got a good toy. It's different now. But what is the same is marketing. Everything is slick marketing. You walk down that aisle and all these voices are telling you what you need. Here's what you need and here's why. They're trying to sell you something. It's kind of the way our whole culture is. We live in a consumer culture that teaches us to make decisions around what we can get from things rather than seeking what God would have us do. It's just the way the world thinks, it seems like. We even struggle with that in church a little bit. How do people decide where to go to church? First of all, God has to be drawing them, leading them to want to go to a church. But if they do, they're probably going to ask, at least internally, this question of, what am I looking for in a church? What would be good for me? And that's just the way the world thinks. We approach everything with this consumer mentality, seeking not so much what does God want for me, but what is best, what is good for me, what is best for me, what do I want? What do I need? We look at the world around us, and it seems like culture forces us into this view of looking for, how do I get what I need out of this? How do I find my share of what I need? How do I find what's going to satisfy what I need in this moment? Well, it makes me think of the title of a song the Rolling Stones sang in the 60s, I Can't Get No Satisfaction. It's still a popular song today. Maybe it's a catchy tune. Maybe it taps into feelings people struggle with of feeling unsatisfied about one thing or another. Truth is, we're a people who always seem to want more. Our culture promises satisfaction will be found in success. If you work hard enough, if you are successful enough, that will leave you satisfied. Or maybe it's money. If you have enough money, all your problems will go away. Maybe it's possessions. If you just had that one more thing, you could be happy. Sadly, so many people look for satisfaction in their relationships. If I could just find that one person who would make me feel like I'm worth it. If I just had one person to share my life in this way or that way, well, maybe that would make me feel fulfilled. Some people think it's about being popular, get a little fame, and that will leave you satisfied. Some people might sell experiences. Check off all the things on your bucket list, and then you'll be satisfied. I've thought about that over the years, and I don't know if I've ever really had a bucket list, but I have this feeling if you get to the end of the list, you'll just find more stuff to add to the list. Yet the truth is, once we get what we think we want, we think we should be satisfied, but we discover that we simply find ourselves longing for more. I liked the grocery store as a kid. Maybe it's why when I grew up, I worked in a grocery store for a while. And aside from the cereal aisle, the other really interesting, well-marketed section of the grocery store is the frozen food section. Over the course of a few years, I had a few tours of duty as the frozen food manager in a grocery store. And there's a secret I learned. The secret to frozen food is this. They have the greatest artists and photographers in the world, and nothing will ever taste as good as it looks on the box. That's frozen food in a nutshell. They make it look so good on the packaging. And you get it, and maybe it's even all right, but it's never going to taste as good as it looks on the box. It never lives up to the hype. The writer of Psalm 73, which we're going to look at today, looked around and he wondered why it seemed like people who ignored God seemed to have everything that he wanted. But here's the secret. The only thing that will really satisfy us is God himself. We can look at what other people have. It's never quite as good as it might look from the outside, because the truth is the only thing that will really satisfy us is God himself. Let's look at Psalm 73, a psalm of Asaph. Surely God is good to Israel, to those who are pure in heart. But as for me, my foot had almost slipped. I had nearly lost my foothold. For I envied the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. They have no struggles. Their bodies are healthy and strong. They are free from common human burdens, that they are not plagued by human ills. Therefore, pride is their necklace. They clothe themselves with violence. From their callous hearts comes iniquity. Their evil imaginations have no limit. They scoff and speak with malice, with arrogance. They threaten oppression. Their mouths lay claim to heaven, and their tongues take possession of the earth. Therefore, their people turn to them and drink up waters in abundance. They say, how would God know? Does the Most High know anything? This is what the wicked are like, always free of care. They go on amassing wealth. Surely in vain I've kept my heart pure and have washed my hands in innocence. All day long I've been afflicted, and every morning brings new punishments. If I had spoken out like that, I would have betrayed your children. When I tried to understand all this, it deeply troubled me, till I entered the sanctuary of God. Then I understood their final destiny. Surely you place them on slippery ground. You cast them down to ruin. How suddenly are they destroyed, completely swept away by terrors. They are like a dream when one awakes. When you arise, O Lord, you will despise them as fantasies. When my heart was grieved and my spirit embittered, I was senseless and ignorant. I was a brute beast before you. yet I am always with you. You hold me by my right hand. You guide me with your counsel, and afterwards you will take me into glory. Whom have I in heaven but you? And the earth has nothing I desired besides you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Those who are far from you will perish. You will destroy all who are unfaithful to you. But as for me, it is good to be near God. I have made the sovereign Lord my refuge. I will tell of all your deeds. As for me, it is good to be near God. You know, I think we can probably relate a little bit to some of the thoughts in the psalmist's mind. He looked around at what other people had. He looked at the people who didn't seem to be living the way God called him to. And it seemed like they were successful, they had wealth, they had things that he would like to have. It's easy to envy others. That's what he's saying in those first few verses. He says, I envied the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. You know, in Exodus 20, when God gives Moses the 10 Commandments, one of them is, do not covet anything that belongs to your neighbor. We don't use that word covet very often. What does covet mean? It means to envy. Thou shalt not envy your neighbor. Of all the 10 Commandments, this might be the most uncomfortable one to talk about. We can talk about murder. I don't want to murder anybody. We can talk about stealing. I'm not going to steal anything. Envy. We live in a society that's telling us we need everything we don't already have. There's this old joke I heard years ago, and I probably said it before, but there's an Amish man living in a very simple little home on a very simple little farm, and next door to him, somebody's built a big new house. And they built it with the newest tools, and they've got this, and they've got that, and indoor heating, like central air conditioning, central heating, swimming pool, everything. This is just this newfangled modern house. And 2 or 3 moving vans pull up, and they unload all the stuff, and this old Amish guy is just watching them carry stuff into the house all day long. And finally, the new owner of the house is out in the yard, and the Amish man goes over and he introduces himself, and he says, I see you got almost everything you can need. If you find there's anything you don't have, let me know and I'll teach you how to live without it. It's true. We have so many of us, I shouldn't say everybody because we know that's not the truth, but so many of us, we have everything that we need, and we focus on what we don't need. On what we don't have that maybe we don't need. Why is it uncomfortable to talk about envy? Because we've all wished we had something that we saw someone else with. If you've ever seen an advertisement and thought, yeah, I'd like to have one of those, at least on a small scale, there's a little envy there. So let's unpack envy a little bit. Maybe the most important question we need to ask is, where does envy become sin? Because I do think it's a matter of degree. It's a matter of where our heart takes that feeling. When you see someone with a new home or a new car, are you happy for them? Are you happy for them? Do you wish well for them? Because if you do, that's not envy, that's loving your neighbor. They work hard, they got a new car, they got a new house. That's good. You can celebrate that. When somebody buys a new home, sometimes we have a housewarming party for them. We're sharing the joy we feel that they have a new home. There's something sincere about that. That's love for your neighbor. But where envy starts to become a problem is when it starts to become not so much I'm thankful for them as it is what about me? The failure of envy begins with comparing things to ourselves. This is where the psalmist says he almost slipped up. The psalmist looks around and he thinks they have money, they have influence, they seem carefree, they don't seem to need God. When we begin comparing ourselves to others, it's one of the great dangers of the world today. Social media has made this worse. Social media has made it more tempting than ever to compare ourselves with others. Social media can lead to feeling like everyone else is happier or more successful than I am. Is life better for everyone else than for me? It can lead to those feelings. And of course, that's a false narrative. Most people don't go online and post unflattering pictures of themselves and their families. They post the good ones. Most people don't share all the negative things life throws their way. They post the things they want to celebrate with others. That's not a bad thing, but scrolling through friends celebrating when we're struggling can lead us to our own feelings of inadequacy or envy. In other words, when seeing what somebody else has starts becoming an issue where we're thinking about what we don't have, that's where our feet start to slip. That's where envy starts to become that sin God was talking about when he said, do not covet. The real cure for envy is to focus on what we really need rather than it's to focus on what we need rather than what we want. And what we need is Jesus. Envy's not the only sin that can start out innocent like that. You know, it's just one of those sins of degrees. When it's a good feeling, when it's recognizing that somebody has something, well, that's love for your neighbor. When it's the media telling us we want things, well, that's just the world tempting us. But when it affects our relationship with God, why don't I have one of those? That's the slippery slope. That's the feet slipping like the psalmist here is talking about. And the real cure is to focus on who we need rather than what we think we need. The truth is, cars or home or clothes, not even family, can truly satisfy your greatest need. There's nothing God can do to satisfy your greatest need, because your greatest need isn't what he can do, it's who he is. It's who he is. He himself is our greatest need. Worldly success cannot satisfy the soul. In verses 13 to 16, the psalmist begins wondering, have I followed God for nothing? You see, if success is only measured by comfort and wealth, faith can seem disappointing. But appearances rarely tell the whole story. A beautiful home can be occupied by unfulfilled people. Some people have everything they thought they wanted and still feel unsatisfied. I mean, we all have wishes. We all have things we want, things we'd like to have, things that would make life a little less difficult for us. But the truth is, can we be satisfied following God and realizing that he's enough? When we spend too much thought on desiring what others have or being grumpy because we don't have that. When we do that, we're allowing the devil to set up shop in our mind. It's good to celebrate your neighbor's well-being. It's not good when it turns into self-pity. That's where our feet are beginning to slip. There was a Kenny Rogers song years ago called The Gambler, and if you'll permit me to use it, even though it talks about gambling a little bit. It told a little story they made into a movie, but there is a line in the song that I think is a good line in that song. He says, "You never count your cards when you're sitting at the table." Don't count your cards when you're sitting at the table. In other words, don't declare that you have lost or won while the game is still being played. Don't deem your life a success or failure by looking at, well, I've got this and I've got that and I've got this. Don't count up life's successes and failures while you're still playing the game. Don't think about success or failure in life at all. Focus on following God and let Him declare your life at the end. Focus on Him. Follow Him. Let Him determine whether or not you're a success or failure. Because ultimately, the only thing that's going to matter is when we leave this world. What's Jesus going to say when we see Him? If He says, "Well done, good and faithful servant," there's nothing in this world that we might measure as success or failure that's really going to matter at that point. Well done, good and faithful servant. Did you follow His plan for your life? Not His plan for someone else's life. Did you follow His plan for your life? That's what will matter. Focus on God and let Him declare the victory. You see, the key to a fulfilling life is trusting God and being obedient to Him and trusting that He is leading you to victory, and let Him define victory. For the psalmist, it says, he talks about his foot slipping, and then he says it, till I entered the sanctuary of God. Everything changed in God's presence. The presence of God was the turning point. Nothing changed externally. The things he was noticing about the wealthy and the evil prospering, that didn't change. His own circumstances didn't change. What changed is he was in the presence of God. What changes is his perspective that comes from being in the presence of God. When he enters the presence of God, he understands their destiny and by implication his own. There's something about being in the presence of God, about worshiping Him. Worship helps us see life from God's point of view. We began service today with that song, "Open the Eyes of My Heart, Lord." And you know, that song's been around for quite a while at this point. It's been sung a lot, and the lyrics are a little bit repetitive, but I love that song because isn't that what we really need, is for God to open our eyes that we might see the way He sees? Sometimes we need to see ourselves the way God sees us. Sometimes we need to see others the way God sees them. Worship helps us see things from God's point of view. Sometimes our greatest need isn't a change in our circumstances, it's a change in our perspective that comes from being in the presence of God. I think it was Brandon Heath that sang a song like 15 or 20 years ago. Give me your eyes for just 1 second. Give me your eyes so I can see everything that I keep missing. Give me your love for humanity. God's grace continually draws us back into His presence, where our hearts can be reshaped and our desires reordered. When we can see things in the light of God's presence, when we can begin to see things the way he sees them, it changes everything. It doesn't change everything on the outside, it changes everything on the inside. Worship also helps to see God for who he really is and not just what I can get from him. I think that's been a struggle always with evangelism in the church, is we need to be careful not to make following Jesus just about selling something. Oh, here's what you need. Add this one more thing to what you already have and you'll be satisfied. It's more than just, think about what Jesus could do for you. Sometimes I think we say things that way because we're struggling to come up with the words, but it's more than that. It's about who God is. It's about how being in the presence of God changes who we are, changes how we see our circumstances. It's not just about what God can do for you. It's about who God is. And we recognize that, when we understand who God is, we see what he's already done for us. That's great, but it's great because it defines who God is. It helps us to see who we are in his eyes. We need to see God for who he is and not just what he gives. And he is extravagant. God is better than what we can get from him. The psalmist says, whom have I in heaven but you? And the earth has nothing I desire beside you. This is getting to the root of dealing with envy. Whom have I in heaven but you? Is there anything else on this earth that I desire more than you? It's one of Scripture's great declarations. The psalmist realizes that God himself is the treasure. That thing we've always been searching for, it's God himself. It's not his gifts, even though there are many. It's not his blessings, even though there are many. It's not his protection, even though he protects. It's God himself. It's not what he gives, but who he is. What he gives helps us to understand who he is, but it's who he is that matters. Is he enough? Think about the things that you would consider that you have. Think about what you have. If everything disappeared, would Jesus be enough? It's a sobering question. I'm not saying, would you be sad? You obviously would. I'm not saying, would you be struggling? You obviously would. What I'm saying is, if all you had was Jesus, would he be enough? Would he carry you through? Would you still trust him? The secret to a satisfied life is found in this psalm, kind of at the end. It's good to be near God. That's the secret. It's good to be near God. Notice what the psalmist doesn't say. He doesn't say, it's good to have money. It's good to have an easier life. He doesn't say anything except it's good to be near God. In John 6:35, Jesus said, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. Christ doesn't merely improve our lives. I think that's one of the challenges the church faces in this consumer-driven culture we live in. People want to take Jesus and just put him in their pocket and say, I have all of this, and now I got Jesus in my pocket too. It doesn't work that way. That's not worship. It's religion in a sense, I guess. It's adding something. Christ doesn't call us to add him along with the other things we worship. That's idolatry. Christ calls us to turn from where we are and come follow him. Christ calls us to surrender. Here's what I have, Lord, it's yours. Let's go. He doesn't want to be your one more thing in your pocket. He wants to be your everything, the foundation from which everything else moves and flows. And following him means obeying him. Christ doesn't merely improve our lives. He satisfies the deep thirst of the human heart. The Rolling Stones gave voice to humanity's frustration. I can't get no satisfaction. Why can't I find what would make me happy? Psalm 73 offers a truthful perspective. The psalmist discovers a satisfaction isn't found in having more. It's found in being nearer to God. The world says if I just had a little more of everything. And we know the truth is if you had a little more, you'd just want a little more after that. The gospel says if I have Christ, I already have what matters most. The Apostle Paul, sometimes he amazes me. In Philippians 1:21, he writes a letter of Philippians from prison. He doesn't know if he's going to live or die. He doesn't know if this time he's going to be released or if he's going to be executed. And he says, for to me to live is Christ and to die is gain. In other words, if I live, I have everything I need. I need Jesus. And if I die, I go to be with Jesus. To live is Christ and to die is gain. Where have you been looking for satisfaction? Where have you believed this one more thing would finally make you happy? Think about the things in your life that have brought you some happiness. Is there still more you want? Has it delivered? Today, God invites us to stop chasing what cannot satisfy and to find our joy in his presence. We came into this world by the will of God. Yeah, people play a role in it, but who you are, your presence here, God shaped who you were. God brought you into this world. And at the end of the day, God's going to play a role in our leaving this world. In the end, it all comes back to him. We said this last week, in last week's sermon, where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord. Where do I find satisfaction? In nobody else but the Lord. Today, God invites us to stop chasing what cannot satisfy and to find joy in his presence. Let's sing one more song this morning. May the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. God bless you and enjoy your afternoon.